Hello and welcome to Chapter 206 of DC Alliance Podcast. Today is a solo episode channeling my inner Travis Told You So uh, to talk about the Supergirl casting. We got some other DC news, and at the end, I'm going to give some thoughts on the Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Just some few quick what I liked and didn't like. Not as in depth as the Animation Nation covered it. I think that's almost 2 weeks ago now. So, yeah, Joe's not here. Joe couldn't be here this week. He'll be back next week, of course. Obviously, Joe, you're missed here, but we'll see you in a week. We have some, like I said, we have actual official casting. It's fun too, listeners, because we were going to go last week, but we couldn't make it. And just a little peek behind the curtain, our main topic was DCU Supergirl Showdown for the casting because it was up to 2 at that point. But now, a full week later, we actually have our official news for that. And I will get into that, of course. I am running on fumes, if I'm being honest with you. It's been a long week. We finally have childcare, I think, figured out, which will be nice. Besides that, work is work. So I've been looking forward to this, especially since we got this news. So I won't wait any longer. Let's get the network plugs out of the way. Before I do that, though, I will be remiss if I don't remind you guys. There is a GUA survey that's still ongoing. So if you could take a little bit of time to fill that out, that would be greatly appreciated. Helps us improve the shows. That's always a good thing. So again, thank you if you take the time to fill that out. It's greatly appreciated. I can't believe we've been around for 4 years now. It's pretty wild. So let's get the network plugs out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance with 7 shows in total. On Mondays, bi-weekly is Ranger Alliance. On Tuesdays is a walk through the multiverse. On Wednesdays is the Animation Nation. On Thursdays is Star Wars Alliance. On Fridays is Marvel Alliance. On Saturdays is DC Alliance. And Sundays monthly is World's Finest True Believers. Star Wars Alliance goes live on the Geekverse YouTube channel Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Marvel Alliance goes live Thursdays at 9-10 p.m. Eastern Time, and DC Alliance goes live Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Normally, all 3 of those shows also have their own podcast feed. Search DC Alliance, Marvel Alliance, or Star Wars Alliance if you just want DC content, Marvel content, or Star Wars content only. But if you want all 7 shows on the GUA Podcast Network, stay subscribed to the GUA on your podcast app of choice. We also have a Patreon, 2 tiers, a $1 tier and a $5 tier. The $1 tier is basically a tip jar. You like what we're doing and you want to help us out any way you can. And the $5 tier is where you get your extras. You get your ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, and Patreon exclusive episodes. Myself and Joe are going through all the DC films through the years, so stick with us as we cover the entirety of those. We also have Brent and Chris, the Marvel Alliance guys. They did an entire Infinity Saga rewatch. So there's over 30 pieces of content on here for the patrons. We also have Clay's Marvel Snap reviews. We have Katie going through Star Wars canon comics. And we also have Joe's Multiverse Minutes. We thank everyone that's a patron, but if you're not a patron, you can take a quick 30 to 60 seconds to rate and review the podcast on your podcast app of choice. It's always greatly appreciated. It helps other people find the show, and that's always a good thing. Okay. So I think that's everything. Good to go here. And obviously getting into the main topic, the main thing tonight, which is we have our DCU Supergirl. Millie Alcock, House of Dragon, obviously, has landed the highly coveted role of Supergirl in James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC universe. Gunn made the announcement on social media. This is essentially what his post was. Strangely, Millie was the first person I brought up to Peter for this role well over a year ago when I had only read the comics. I was watching House of the Dragon and thought she might have the edge, grace, and authenticity we need for the DCU Supergirl. And now here we are. Life is wild sometimes. And I have seen some things on Twitter. People get blocked immediately that were complaining, like, why fly anyone else out? Seems like you had the person in mind. Why go through this awesome ring dance? You have to do that for these top characters. You have to bring these people out. And they did some cool things here. Sources say that James Gunn and Peter Safran flew multiple actors to Atlanta for old-fashioned on-screen auditions on the Superman Legacy set. The actor also donned the Supergirl suit and boots, which is a typical move in the superhero audition process. I'm really excited for this. I think Supergirl is going to be a standout here. She had her own show for 5 6 seasons, 5 seasons at least. That is something that did have really good numbers with CBS for the year that it was there, if I'm not mistaken. So again, this is something, and the comic that this is based on is supposed to be amazing. We are going to dive into that. That'll be one of the choices when we get that poll out to the listeners of what comic they want us to cover. Because I love that some of these films are based on comics, inspired by comics, and from everything I've been told about Millie Alcock, because I have not watched the new uh, Game of Thrones spinoff. I just haven't had the her to invest emotionally in Game of Thrones again after going through all those seasons and then getting to the seventh and eighth season. They throwing everything from this first six out the window just to finish. I was a little burned by that. I've been told, obviously, this is a new thing and it's awesome. So I am going to give it a chance. I didn't get into Game of Thrones till the third season or second season, one of the two. I think the third season. So give me time. But everything here, she was the top dog. She was had a lot of buzz behind her, and just looking at the picture that is here for of her, and then Supergirl in the comic that this is based on, Woman of Tomorrow. This, I mean, this is fantastic. This looks so good. I, I I think this is going to be awesome. I do think we're going to see her in the post-credit scene for this film for Superman Legacy. I think we'll see her pod crashing off course, something along those lines before we won't get much else, but I do think that'll be the post-credit scene. So she'll technically be in the movie, but she won't. Where Gunn has said a couple times, I haven't said she's in the movie. She doesn't have to be in the actual movie. She can be in the post-credit scene. So I know Gunn speaks about those post-credit scenes not wanting to set stuff up for people to watch going forward. But again, I'm really excited here. Alan the Games in the chat and says, would have been cool for the prospective Supergirl director to have been involved with her casting. Will any of the other movie directors get to cast their own lead characters? That is something I wanted to get to, Alan the Games. So I'm really glad you brought that up because, again, people can push back on this, and I understand that a little bit. But for example, Wonder Woman, we look at that. You look at what Patty Jenkins was able to do with that first film, already having Wonder Woman cast. It goes like that. Even in the Marvel machine, how much does the director get to choose when casting some of these? I'm really interested in those kind of things. How much input do you get? Here, I'm okay with these big players gun casting. I push back on some things like the Batman. I think Gunn should be involved in all of this, but I also think he should have directors in place. It is a little bit of a bad look on the game because you could do this in concert with your director, like you and your director looking for uh, main actors agreeing on it. That could be a thing. So again, obviously he's going to get criticized for this because anything you do, there's a contingent of people criticizing. I don't know if that'll lead to any better of a film, but there is something to be said for other movie directors getting the cast. I know for a fact, Swamp Thing, they're just going to leave that. They're not going to bother him. They're going to like you do your thing, like Reeves with the Batman. I don't think Gunn is involved in any casting there, so it is important for him not to spread himself too thin as well on the game. So I don't want him casting like I don't need you to cast Booster Gold if you're not anything other than an EP on it. You can let the person who's running the series, mini series, or show or movie, whatever you're doing. Just for example, let that. And same thing with if they do another film with Blue Beetle or Blue Beetle's involved in somebody else's film, they didn't cast that character. It's not obviously the lead character, but you're using characters from that are obviously previously casted. So I'm okay with it. I think that it is more on the up and up. Gunn being involved like this, saying like, "Here, I'm having a hand in casting this character," and also I don't think many directors would complain considering like she was the top of most everyone's get list. She was going to be locked up somewhere, so I'm glad it's here, and this shows me that they have a bit of faith to really adhere to some of these comics that we're adapting here. And I think this could be like a bit more serious tone compared to a Superman Legacy film, for example. So again, I'm okay with this. I don't want it to happen for every film, But for main character spinning out of Superman Legacy, I'm okay with. Obviously, we're not going to see her much in this movie. I do think it's just going to be a post-credit scene. But again, this is good news because if they would have waited for that's my biggest thing on the game. If they would have waited for the director, they might not have got this actress. So again, you got to jump when you have the opportunity. Uh, Frank MX said, "Who the hell did the Russo brothers ever cast?" The Marvels director literally said the Marvels wasn't her film. This is the product of a universal world building. It has to happen this way. Yes, it does. Now, again, you can bring if it all depends. If you have your director already for that film, you can bring them in and ask them their opinion. But in the grand scheme of things, maybe Gunn does work with Millie more. Maybe he does work with Supergirl more if he helms a couple Justice League films or additional films she's in. So again, yes, that's a good point. But the Russos, I don't think they cast anybody. Question mark? Maybe. Brent's like this is what actually happened, but I'm not sure. So, yeah, that's a really good point, Frank. That's something that the Marvel machine's been going strong. You have to use characters. Do you think John Watts was like, oh damn, I don't want to use Tom Holland. You cast him and he was in Civil War. Shoot, I want to no, obviously that was Kevin Feige. I almost said that was the Russos, but no, I'm pretty sure Kevin Feige had a hand in Spider-Man being cast. So again, exciting news here. They're also saying that DC is looking to attach a director for Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, in the coming weeks. That was from Variety, and Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is looking to start shooting this fall. So again, this is all great news for DCU. When we after we come back from our first break, I will pump the brakes on the DCU celebrations just a little bit. Uh, I don't want to throw too much water on that fire, but there's been some things that came out earlier this week that have given me pause as a fan of DC and hoping that the DCU is going to go and thrive. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the Hollywood Reporter article about this, and essentially it's Alcock screen tested for DC Studios bosses James Gunn and Peter Safran last week, along with Meg Donnelly, who was also in contention for the role. Which is sad to see her miss out on that, and she'll only be remembered as in Supergirl lore as in the Tomorrowverse. So uh, tough break there. uh, and Anna Nogueira, we've already commented on that before, is penning the script for this film. Uh, and like I said before, Alcock broke out with House of the Dragon, a spin-off from Game of Thrones that I will eventually get to. And Gunn is all in for this. This is obviously based on Tom King. Even Tom King commented on this as well and said that it was just like good. He's hopeful of seeing this. And Gunn said to reporters in late January 2023, "We will see the difference between Supergirl, who was sent to Earth and raised, or Superman, sorry, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, raised on a rock, a chip off of Krypton, who watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then come to Earth." So this is going to be good. I really think they're going to go all in here with this. Hunter Iggy asked, "What is your thoughts on Suicide Squad killed the Justice League and the people still mad about killing Batman?" Iggy, or Hunter Iggy, I think that people are going to be mad anyway. I'm okay with the people making that game, making their whatever creative decisions they want it to make. We will always have the Batman Arkham games. They weren't going to make any new ones. Sorry to say, Kevin Conroy has passed away now for a little while, for a year. So they weren't going to make any more. I'm okay with that. I think people just like to complain. If you complain about the quality of the game, like the gameplay, I'm okay with hearing that. But creative decisions, that was for the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League people. They're allowed to do whatever they want in their story. They got the thumbs up from DC. So again, if you're really mad about that, go complain to them. Don't complain to the people that made the game, because I've seen that a little bit, especially IGN. IGN's getting a little snippy, in my opinion. And it's soon time for that to stop. On the game, I said Russo brothers cast Tom Holland and Chadwick Boseman in Civil War. So, yeah, it all depends on the director and how they go about things. I actually think my dog's at my door there, which is hilarious. So yeah, I'm excited for for Meg. I haven't seen her in anything, to be honest with you. It's not something that I have any experience in her acting ability. But Gunn, I don't have any complaints in anybody that Gunn has cast in his superhero films. So onward and upward, as they say. Let's take our first ad break of the evening before we get into the put the pause on DCU for a second in terms of the height with me. Listeners, we're an ad support network. We don't pick the ads or the volume. I'm going to give you a quick 3 count to adjust your volume, and we'll be right back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. Okay, listeners, let's get into this because, like I said, uh, I am a little hesitant about the DCU hype train. Actually, just I'm going to take 1 second here. I'll have to write that time down. We call that having a sucky dog that cries at the door. So I have to let him in there. Joe was off tonight. He couldn't make it. So instead of punting another week, Hunter, I wanted to talk about this, a few things here. And we're going to get into another thing here now, which is not a great time for Warner Brothers Discovery, as Warner Brothers Discovery stock falls after analyst downgrade on lower M&A likelihood, slower max growth, and ad decline. Not a great time for Warner Brothers Discovery. The headline, the first line is Warner Brothers Discovery probably won't see a transformative MA deal this year. And given negative trends in its TV and streaming businesses, selling off all your content to other streaming businesses, so your streaming service isn't doing that well. Wells Fargo analyst issued a downgrade on the media conglomerate stock, which that's not a good thing, listeners. Just throwing that out there. Wells Fargo on Monday downgraded its rating on WBD stock from equal weight from overweight and trimmed its price target from 16 to 12 per share. Shares of Warner Brothers Discovery dropped as much as 3.5% before closing on Monday. It's under 10.49 right now. I looked at it like an hour ago, and I'm thinking it's closed. I'm pretty sure it's closed now. Among the factors for the downgrade with Wells Fargo team is less favorable on the chance of a big merger or acquisition involving Warner Brothers Discovery transpiring in 2024. Obviously, there was a Paramount stuff out there that kind of died down pretty quickly. Amid speculation of potential deals, the Wall Street firm has pushed the prospect of Comcast merging with WBD, but the analyst team led by Steve Cahill noted that the Comcast CEO Brian Roberts last week downplayed the need to pursue a major deal. The analyst added, even if a MA transaction makes sense, we don't see any urgency in an election year. Paramount Global or some of its assets like CBS are or could be available, they wrote, but equity investors have a very limited tolerance for more debt regardless of strategic rationale. So again, this was the big thing here. That I was worried about when it came to the DCU, because WBD is not doing well. Uh, just one other thing they said was, looking back, the ad market hasn't improved. Direct to consumer streaming growth has slowed as HBO content was later in 2023. Plus, Max is perhaps not marrying the legacy Discovery content with the HBO fan base and licensing marquee titles. It seems to be off the table given their contribution to Max engagement. The Wells Fargo analyst wrote, the firm forecast Max net ads to be more than 2.5 million in 2024, driven by international expansion. That growth rate is lagging that of Netflix, Disney Plus, Peacock, and Paramount. So Peacock and Paramount got in after and have passed HBO Max. The analyst expects ad revenue for Warner Bros. Discovery to come in at $8.7 billion, which includes a 13% decline as its TV networks and projects consolidate ad revenue, dropping 5% in 2024 to $8.3 billion. So again, all this stuff essentially compounded with the content licensing, which is a double-edged sword for the company. And this is one thing I talked about a lot. I know I'm getting into some of the nitty-gritty here, but this is what I got into. This is what I've spoken about before in the past as well, because you get that cash that you need so quickly, so desperately, and you have none of the expenses that come along with creating a show. You don't have anything other than licensing out your content. But that is a rob Peter to pay Paul type of situation where you're getting your money up front, but you're losing out on the long term, so much more money in the long term if this was your own show on your own streaming platform. So again, when you get those licensing agreements, like WBD has licensed some HBO and Warner titles to services including Netflix, which is supposed to be one of your direct competitors with Max, it doesn't inspire any confidence with these people when they're looking at the projections financially. And that stuff is not great. It's just really, really causes pause. Iggy says, people want David Zaslav to sell WBD to Universal Studios, but Universal Studios is also in it too. Yeah, it's a lot of these companies aren't great. Frank Emick says, House of Dragon and the Penguin Show can't come soon enough for Max. Amen for that, Frank. They need some hits. And again, I do think they need DCU up and running to make it a more favorable sell, because this is the way it is looking, if I'm being completely honest. This is going to sell, or they're going to be taken over. One of two things are going to happen as their stock continues to plunge. Their stock was in the 40s and 50s. It's $10. It's $10 for their stock, for their major studio stock. And I could go and put up the stock of the other major movie studios, but trust me, they're not that bad. They're not that bad. And then to get lapped by Peacock and Paramount Plus in the streaming game, that is terrible. And when you're selling off all your content, honestly, all I've seen is moves Zaslav's making to try and get debt down to make this a more desirable sell. He may even have some sort of bonus where if the company does get sold, he may have some sort of bonus tied to that, or a golden parachute if they bring in a new person after it sells. It's just wild to me that I'm really nervous for the DCU because I'm getting hyped now, but you look at the financials. Honestly, I'm partly of the belief that I'm not fully confident things will continue to go forward if we have a whole load of failures with WBD films. This past year really took a toll. Yes, they had Barbie, but all the comic book movies did not do great. We'll talk about Aquaman's box office in a while here, but yeah, it's nerve wracking. I want the DCU to be successful. That is the main goal here. I want to see all these things. I'm getting hyped now with the casting. We got a Superman film going into production in a month. Like, yes, come on with it. Iki says, the starter fans are the only 1% of DC fans they think control everything. Yeah, they're not big enough for this at all. They again, DCU is going to be, and I argue, Iggy, that Man of Steel, they didn't have those kind of, like, it was general audience. So same thing applies here for Legacy. And I do think Legacy is going to do well. I think that it's not going to hurt that Joker is going to be the only film for DC this year. I think that will help with the brand, because I think that will do good, especially where it's going to be unique. So again, they need to start working on the brand, because the brand took a big hit this past year with those films in theaters. They did not perform well for the general audience. The general audience, honestly, like I told the story a couple months ago of in my office, somebody actually being like, "What's wrong with DC? Ugh, like they're so bad. I'm not even going to see this film." How could you say what? That's what. And he's just a regular. I go see comic book films in theaters. I'm not. I don't read comics. I'm not a big any other fan. I just that's it. I just watch the films. I think they're cool, but he has a sour taste. Didn't watch Blue Beetle in theaters. Stuff like that. So again, DC needs some brand improvement, some damage control, we'll say, and this kind of stuff is all great. Like Millie Alcock being cast as Supergirl, thumbs up. But you gotta just pay attention to WBD's performance, because a takeover could mean anything. It could mean things just keep going. If you see that Gunn and Safran have DCU going strong, having good hits, not losing money, then you can totally see a person, whoever buys it, continuing on with it. That is the thing that you got to hope for here. Aquaman 2 almost breaking even was a shot. I got some China numbers, Frank, that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here that are even more shocking, in my opinion. It's astonishing that they perform that well. So, again, like I said, the actual stock price right at this moment for WBD is $10.25. So, yeah, not great. It's like it was up to what we got 5 years ago. The top was $53, and it's down to $10 now. And it didn't get much higher than that. That's essentially the top, but it has gotten so bad. So, yeah, just be a little apprehensive in the super pumping of the woo DCU's going strong. We have to get a few other things. On the game says the Leave the World Behind Netflix movie that came out around the same time as Snyder's Rebel movie is now eighth most viewed movie in their history and could rise to number 5. Again, that seems like a more all general audience bringing in movie instead of a sci-fi fantasy flick that Snyder's doing. I haven't watched that film yet, hand up, so I will eventually. But I was a DC fan. I really enjoyed Snyder's 3 DC films, but I'm a DC fan before anything else. I haven't watched all of Snyder's films, so I'm just like if I was a fan of a certain comic book that I was reading, if a new artist, new writer came out, I'd just keep reading. If it wasn't good, I'd go on to something else. But I give a chance for everything. So uh, I haven't seen Rebel Moon, so I probably will. I've seen Army of the Dead, and I enjoyed that. So it just depends on who, like, whatever film it is, if I'm going to enjoy it or not. I'm not. It's not about the director for me most times. Hunter Iggy, what are your thoughts on Carol Weather passing? I'm really saddened, if I'm being honest with you, Iggy. Not even about The Mandalorian, which really enjoyed his performance there. I grew up. I'm a '87 baby, so I grew up in the late '80s, early '90s. My uncle used to have all kinds of old action VHSs uh, up to the cabin that we used to go to, and I watched Predator. I watched all the Rocky films up there, and he was just honestly, he looked like a comic book character. He looked like something chiseled out of granite when I was seeing him, and he was a really good actor. He got better. His roles were more diverse. Obviously, Happy Gilmore. Nothing needs to be said about Chubbs, but I just sad to see him go. 76 years is a good run. He got to live a great life, but again, sad. We'll always have the handshake meme to keep us going there. Uh, Frank, folks keep arguing with Snyder fans are just as toxic as Snyder fans. It's all cesspool. Frank, my blacklist is almost in 3,000 now. I block the toxic Snyder fans, but I also block other people. I used to co-host a podcast with somebody, and yes, he don't like the Snyder movies. He's worse than those toxic Snyder fans, as all he does is crap on everything with Snyder. It's very sad. It's like a toxic, vicious cycle that you're like, guys, what are you doing? Like, Adam, like, take some time and just get some hobbies. Like, stop hating. It's a, like you said, it's a cesspool. I choose to stay out of that cesspool. I enjoyed the 3 films, but again, I'm not going to fight somebody over them. It's just they're there. I'll always enjoy them. I'm super excited for Legacy and everything in the DCU. You can like more than one thing. That's the thing that some people don't understand. On the game, very eclectic career. Loved him in Arrested Development. Yes, yes. Thank you for saying that as well. I completely forgot about his performance. He had some very good comedic chops, if I'm being honest with you. Very good comedic chops. And I wish I would have seen more of him. He was a action star that moved into other roles and did it quite well. So again, I may even go up and probably watch a Rocky film tomorrow because I'll have to edit this after we're done. So I'm getting a little tired. So, but I will check out something that he's in this weekend. It's sad. It's just sad because again, he looked like he was in really good health, but it can come anytime for anybody. Is the sad thing. So, like I said, watch out when it comes to WD. Just be a little bit up on your quarters, just a little tiny bit, because the performance of the stock is not great at all. So, in keeping the hype train going, though, Gunn has his composer for Superman Legacy. Officially, John Murphy will officially compose for Superman Legacy, and Gunn had a little caption here. Happy to announce that my frequent collaborator, John Murphy, composer, is scoring Superman Legacy. John was one of the first people I called when I finished the script many months ago, as I knew how incredibly important the score was to this production. John has been working tirelessly since creating hours worth of music that will play on set as we shoot and use in the edit that will eventually be recorded with a glorious symphony for all of you. Welcome to the DCU, John. Again, this is awesome. We are so close to a Superman film. A new Superman. We haven't gotten this kind of stuff since 2011, I think. Updates like this. I can't remember when Man of Steel stopped filming. I wasn't paying attention to this stuff back when this was going on. So I'm very excited for the Superman film, and all of these updates aren't coming from uh, scoopers or reporters. These are coming from the director himself. So again, this is great. This is great. And we got a 1 year update from Gunn as well, saying 1 year ago today, Peter Safran and I introduced our DC slate for the first time. Thanks to all of you for the support you've given us throughout the year. Today, Superman Legacy is about to start production. Episodes of Creature Commandos are being finished that will release later this year, and at least 2 more projects are gearing up to go in the next couple months. Amazing scripts keep coming in, and incredible talent are being attached to new projects, planned and unplanned. Thank you, DC Studios. I think things are going well. I do think that they, looking back, and obviously kept in hindsight, because I immediately put out an emergency podcast talking about the announcement. Looking back, the announcement probably wasn't the greatest thing to do. It kind of took the legs out from under the 4 films, but I do also understand how annoying it would have been for Gunn for the whole year to be asked, "Are you continuing with this? What are you doing with Henry Cavill? Is there a Gal Gadot Wonder Woman film?" All that kind of stuff. So that would have went on for a full year of speculation. Like, what are you going to do? What's going to happen? It was better for him and his own sanity to just pluck the Band-Aid off. Wasn't better for WBD's box office performance for these films, in my opinion. But again, this is purely speculative because we can't find out if that's actually accurate. That because we don't know. I'm just saying I do think that the announcement didn't help, but also I'm not sure how many just regular run of the mill general audience people even watched that announcement. So yeah, I'm excited. I do think the 2 projects that he has that are going into gearing up to go into production next couple months are Waller and Peacemaker season 2. He's talked about he finished writing all of season 2 of Peacemaker, so I'm assuming that's going to go into production. John Cena's 47 for crying out loud, so we eventually got to get him going again another season. I'm really interested to see how they're even going to merge the 2 to bring him into the new DCU, but obviously Gunn has a plan, and we shall see that. So let's take our final ad break of the evening. We'll get to more news, and then I'll give you some Crisis on Infinite Earth thoughts for part 1. Listeners, we're an ad-supported network. We don't pick the ads or the volume. We'll give you a quick 3 count to adjust your volume, and we'll be right back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. Okay, listeners, foraging on, Gunn has teased, well, it looks like he's teasing the Fortress of Solitude. He's showing completely blank on location set, and that's the kind of stuff you want. I want CG merged with location sets, and I also want the gigantic ice palace with the crystals going across, every crisscrossing every which way. That's the kind of Fortress of Solitude I want. Please give me that kind of stuff. I'm not sure though, and again, none of this stuff is make or break for me, but that would get my vote for Fortress of Solitude. Do you think? Wait, the last Fortress of Solitude was Brandon Routh. We've never seen Fortress of Solitude. They've had the scout ship as the Fortress of Solitude in the like DCEU, if I'm not mistaken, or that's what it served at the time. So we have another update that I was shocked to hear. J.J. Abrams and Tallahassee Coates' Superman film is still in development, according to Gunn. Someone asked, "Is that Abrams' Superman Elseworld project still in development?" Gunn said yes. I don't understand why you would do that, especially with Legacy coming out. That just seems to confuse people. Obviously, I know we have the Batman and Brave and Bold, but I feel like you should have this Superman like out front and center. You don't need an Elseworlds Superman as well, and then people thinking about bringing him across this universe or not. That's something that I don't know, or speculating. Ooh, will this person cross over with Pattinson's Batman? I don't need multiple universes going on at the same time. Yes, if it's just an Elseworld story, I would enjoy it, but again, I don't see this film ever making it to light of day. It's going to join the Nightwing film. So a fun news story. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, has been acquired by Warner Brothers Discovery. The studio closed the deal valued at $15 million. We had this in the story for last week as well, and the bidding war was starting at $10 million. And Gunn had some great comments on this as well. Gunn said, "I saw the stunningly beautiful documentary Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, a couple weeks ago. It emotionally floored me. Peter and I knew DC Studios needed to be involved, and I'm grateful to Peter and our WBD family at Warner Brothers, HBO, CNN, and Max having worked so hard to acquire it. It's a wonderful film by wonderful filmmakers, not only for people like me who love Reeves' work, but for everyone." So there's no like breakdown of what they're going to do yet. Are they going to release it theatrical, or is it just going to go straight to streaming? Whatever they decide, I can't wait to see that. We'll definitely review that here. This seems like a great documentary. The people involved in it, I listened to some interviews, are fans. So I'm really excited to see what this is going to be about, because yes, we know the Superman Christopher Reeve story, but there's obviously more to it than that. And documentaries are really starting to pick up steam a la post The Last Dance. So again, give me this. I can't wait. And props to WBD on doing something legacy wise for their studio, because Reeves helped build that. So some news and some pushback on that news, some correction. Luckily, we did not talk last week, as there has been an update on this since we got it. So uh, we were told that Kevin Conroy's Batman from Batman the Animated Series will be returning in Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths in the third part, from an IGN article. They said he did some voice work before he passed. They also said in that same article, however, that he was going to do voice work for Batman Caped Crusader. It has come out since then from the people working on that show that he did not get to voice anything. They wanted him to do something, but he passed away before they had the chance. So part of me is like, so everything in that article is bull crap, but nobody from the Crisis on Infinite Earths Tomorrowverse people have come out and denied that. That would be too smart for what I've seen from this universe so far. But again, I'm crossing my fingers. I would love to see it. We did have, I want to say, was it who? Iggy Hunter asked about the people getting mad about killing Batman. And obviously, I know that was his last performance, so that's what people thought. Maybe we will see him in this. I'm crossing my fingers. IGN is not exactly the pillar of journalistic integrity, though, so I'm not sure if that's even gonna come to fruition. But cross your fingers for that one, and cross your bat toes. Next, we have is the Penguin show going to finish soon? Michael Kelly has finished filming his role for the Penguin. We had a couple pictures of Colin Farrell on set that came out yesterday as well. So I do think we're going to get the finish of that. There was a fight scene with someone beating up Colin Farrell's Penguin. I'm pretty sure Frank mentioned it above. Yes, the Penguin show can't come soon enough for Max. Penguin show can't come soon enough for me as well. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I'm so ready to get back in Matt Reeves' universe. I want to get back there. Want to see Pattinson, or what effect has happened since the first Batman. Now we get our Aquaman update, and this is what I was talking about before about China. A little astonishing, not as surprising when you talk about Juan's performance there overall. This is from Luis Fernando, of course. In China's box office sequel, Aquaman The Last Kingdom shows excellent legs once again, climbed to number 4 on 7th Friday after grossing another 298K. Uh, over 15K screenings plus 3K from last Friday, same from yesterday, going up 14.6% from last Friday for 62.4 million cumulative locally. Now just around 700K away from beating Oppenheimer, what Aquaman 2 should achieve by Sunday, and it stays in theaters until February 16th in China. So 52K in pre-sales for 7th Saturday, when it will play over 17K screenings. So this is good news. It's nice to see DC making some way with China, because the last few films have not performed well there. So it's nice to see that. And coming after the success of the previous Aquaman, is easy to see why. Just from the success of that in China, and the visuals here alone are fantastic. They're still great here. They're not quite as good as the first one, in my opinion, but still they're great here. And then breaking down the rest of Aquaman, Aquaman Last Kingdom finished its 6th full week at U.S. box office, still showing solid legs after grossing 165K on its 6th Thursday, dropping just 30.8% from last Thursday, despite having lost 305 theaters last Friday versus 2018's Aquaman's 551K, minus 19.8%. Aquaman 2 hits 118.8 cumulative and eyeing a 125 million run in the US. Worldwide right now is 413 million. So I don't think that's terrible for us, knowing that this was the last film in the DCU. There was nothing with this going forward. I don't think it's terrible. And Frank says even domestically is still making money. Good. Uh, and Frank, I'm glad that you enjoyed the movie. I was a little frustrated with the Black Manta side of things. I was, from the trailers, I was built it more of a like battle to the death to the end, like you and me. They really tossed him aside for a little tiny bit there that I didn't like at the culmination of the film, but there is a lot of good things in there. Love, and as far as I say, there's not too many bad DCEU movies, in my opinion. There's a lot of average or better than average, but there's not many bad ones. So I can see how anybody can enjoy most of these films, in my opinion. And again, the visuals in this alone, James Bond has such a talent for this stuff. Ooh, it's going to be sad, but like Frank said, it's still making money, which is impressive because you can own it on digital since last week as well. So that was the other thing in the show notes, was own it on digital. That was for last week, and it's still making money. I wonder when it's gonna what it's gonna finish with in China. Then you'll get that update here, of course. Uh, yeah, so that's pretty good. Uh, I props to the Aquaman people, because again, not under the greatest circumstances. So we got some fun things to talk about now before we get into my thoughts on Crisis. Sean William Scott, American Pie, of course, says that DC character he'd like to play is Booster Gold. He said, "Come on, James, let it go." I watched this clip, and honestly, I would watch that. I think he could do a good job. Not gonna lie, I would be in on that. That is something that I think a lot of people would be surprised at his performance. I think he could do a great job in that role. So again, I don't think he's going to get cast, because almost every time you lobby for a role out in the open like that, you never get cast. So you might have made your own mistake there, but uh, on the game, Billy Magnuson is my Booster Gold. That's not a that's a choice I would not hate either. That's bravo on that one, Alan Levine. That's a good choice. So a positive move from Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is paving the way for Christopher Nolan's return to the studio with a re-release of Tenet in theaters on February 23rd. That's via The Insider. Ugh, hate when you have to quote or cite him for things. He's one of the worst, or he was one of the worst tactics. Yeah, so as well, when Joe comes back next week, we will jump back into our Smallville retro recaps. We'll talk about 3 different episodes, 402, 403, and 404, before, because I don't want to talk. I don't want to dive into these without Joe, because it's a much more enjoyable conversation with him, talking about the things we experienced when we watched the show back in the day, And now watching it at this time, if there's any differences, if there's things we really enjoyed more than not, and we both really love Lois. Erica Durance is Lois in this show, so I'm waiting for you on this one, Joe. I'm not going to go forward without that. So instead, I'm going to give some thoughts on Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Of course, I already reviewed this for the Animation Nation with Chris Evans and Nick Zednick, but I'm not going to go in as in depth. I'm going to talk for about 5 minutes about this. I'm just going to talk about things that I really enjoyed and hopes for potential going down the line. So, yeah, this film is a disaster, in my opinion. I saw a comment of somebody saying, I got mine in my Amazon cart. I can't wait to buy it tomorrow. And I almost wanted to reply in the live stream I was watching, being like, don't buy it. Don't do that to yourself. No, it's such a confusing mess. There's too many things going on. It's almost like I part of me thinks that someone showed the people when they made this film the criticisms of everything happens off camera in the Tomorrowverse, and they're like, not on our watch. And it literally 30% of the film is showing everything that's happened prior to this this crisis with the Justice League and Justice League forming and all this stuff. It no sense. You have the crime syndicate family in this. The crime syndicate from Earth 3. You don't use any of the people from that hit film back in 2010. I think 2010. Could have been 2012. Don't use anybody. Not even the same designs. Why not use the exact same designs? Oh, so frustrating. Why not use the exact same designs? Don't understand that. Cool. Some cool things there with them. Don't get me wrong. But you could have ratcheted up another level having the exact same animated characters that was in a film that a lot of people really enjoyed. Don't understand it. Very frustrating. I don't know who runs some of this stuff. It's like, did you watch any of the other DC animated films? Because when you're doing Crisis, it's supposed to be like celebration of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, terrible mistake there. The Crime Syndicate the Crime Syndicate is awesome, but again, not a lot of time there. Superman goes to punch the antimatter wave, like that was the dumbest thing. All of them are so dumb in the end. You're just like, what? Flash even basically says as much. So yeah, the main problem though is that there's 3 separate storylines going on at once. There's only one enjoyable storyline out of that, because the other storyline, Barry and Iris, would have been enjoyable if you had any previous connection to Barry or Iris in this or of Iris or Barry and Iris, the relationship in this Tomorrowverse. You have none of that at all. At all, at all, at all. We've never seen Iris before now, and we're supposed to devote a core third of this film to her and Barry's relationship and how they're always supposed to be together, and they spend so much time in Flash time. Never seen him in Flash time, minus a couple of bullets dodging, but never seen him in this kind of extent of Flash time. I've seen this on The Flash before in 4th or 5th season, but never seen this Flash do this before. That's 1/3 of this film. Another 1/3 of this film, like I mentioned before, here's all the things that Travis talked about in the previous every film about this stuff happening off screen with the Justice League. We see the Justice League form. I complained about never seeing the Justice League form. We see the continuation of the post-credit scene of The Long Halloween Part 2. Why, in this final 3-part film, are you doing that? Why not focus on the Crisis story? Why? Don't understand it. Frustrating. Show me that earlier. Show me that before Crisis. None of that. I never saw how Justice League formed. We just had that formed in Green Lantern Beware My Power. There was a watchtower. No explanation of it. We see how Justice League formed. Really cool stuff in there. Again, not needed for your final 3 films, in my opinion. That stuff is needed for your first 7. Put it somewhere in there. No, none of that. We had this cool battle of Lex Luthor and the Justice League forms because of it. Superman, Batman know each other. That's another thing we're getting into. This is a segment essentially is called What Grinds Travis's Gears, because you do such a good job in Man of Tomorrow of building suspense about when Batman and Superman are going to meet, because all we see is we get a comment about Gotham being dark and that dark person there, and we see a picture of Batman, like a Polaroid of him. That's it. So you're like, oh, and we don't see any of that. We see them together at the end of the Legion. They're together. They know each other. What happened in between then? At all? How, at least there's two ways of doing this. In the previous universe, at least had them all meet up straight up in the Justice League movie and go from that. Same thing they did with the Justice League uh, JL animated series. Now, obviously, Superman and Batman had previously met each other in the continuity of that universe, and you actually show that in that 3-part pilot. But here, so frustrating. So frustrating. So again, that was another frustrating part. You're just giving me flashbacks of a universe that is dying, showing me stuff that I didn't need to see. Like, because the story with the Monitor and all the heroes from the other universe, that is really, really good. That was enjoyable. But when you 2/3 of your film I don't like, and 1/3 I enjoy, and I'm being generous with the 1/3 of it here, I'm hoping that that is more of the film going forward. I'm hoping that is more of the film, the Mandler stuff, the antimatter wave. I think there's some things up with that. I think I think the Monitor turned into the antimatter, or the Monitor is actually the antimatter. I also think that there was a homeless guy here. I think he's John Constantine from the New 52 universe. We saw at the House of Mystery, Spectre flicked him away. Spectre's here for a brief moment, talking to the Monitor at the end. I think he's speaking to the anti-Monitor, in my opinion. And Barry, I'm not sure if Barry's dead. I'm pretty confident that that's the same Barry from the New 52 universe that created this universe, and this was his punishment, where he had to stay in Flash time with Iris to get the tower up to save his Earth. He had to stay there long enough because the tower wasn't built when the wave was coming, and he just basically stayed in Flash time, kept Iris in there with him, and they built the tower, and that was able to combat the antimatter wave. I'm not sure how many Earths were saved. It's kind of my head was left spinning. It was going so many different directions. You were in the past with flashbacks, then stuck in Flash time and burying them. Then, oh, here's the Monitor scene. No, there. So yeah, if you like the Tomorrowverse, give it a look. But I wouldn't recommend this. And as for going forward for parts 2 and 3, we saw a really cool shot. There's this 40-second teaser. Supergirl's Harbinger somehow, have no idea, don't know, no explanation prior at all to know that. Hopefully we see something, but again, that's what they're going to give us, just a quick scene. And we get the Bat family. We see even Terry McGinnis's, well, supposedly, could be Terry McGinnis, could be older Bruce. I think it's Terry McGinnis, but we see the entire Bat family stood up in a frame as well. So that gives me Spider-Verse vibes, of being honest with you, and I'm all for that. And like I spoke about earlier in the news section, we have rumored that Kevin Conroy is going to reprise his role in the 3rd part. I'm not 100% sure, but as IGN got other things wrong in that article. But if it is, it could be a potential way to save this for me, because the first one was not great, not good at all. And it doesn't get my recommendation. My recommendation for anybody is to listen to the Animation Nation's breakdown of that and just wait for parts 2 and 3. And then if parts 2 and 3 are good, you can put out with part 1. And maybe that'll even make part 1 better when you revisit that. I'm trying to think of some films where I watched the first one of the first trilogy, and then after I watched parts 2 and 3, it made part 1 better. I can't even remember. That's a question that I'm probably going to throw into GUA chat. What's a trilogy where after parts 2 and 3, part 1 was better? So I know there's not a lot of choices in that. Maybe the Phantom Menace. After all of Palpatine's moves, maybe that makes the Phantom Menace a bit better, in my opinion. Yeah, that's probably what I'll go with as the first one off the top of my head. But yeah, let's hope that parts 2 and parts 3 are better. There's no release date on this stuff yet, so no idea. And Creature Commandos in 2024. So DC animation is on the rise. Okay, DC animation is here in 2024. On the rise might be a bit of a bold claim. I'll have to see parts 2 and 3 of this to confirm that. Anyway, listeners, That's all I have for you here this evening. Thank you for joining me for my own personal Travis Told You So. Travis Hines Told You So. Hynes, not like the ketchup. Yeah, so this was fun. Thank you, on the game, Frank, Hunter Iggy, for being in the chat. Um, we have a Supergirl with DCU. Let's hope that the stock does not turn to